and others should be far away so that they don't hear what we say. And then the visionaries went up to the pines and went into ecstasy in front of those young witnesses, who were able to move as they pleased among the visionaries. These witnesses were 6 years old. We have large fragments of dialogue from the girls in ecstasy. In general, the speech is simple and to the point, with childlike expressions, and gives the appearance of dealing with the happenings of the day or the previous days. Prayer. In the events of Garabandal, prayer has always been the most important thing. Very seldom would there be a vision in which the girls did not recite the rosary or pray a station to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. The recitation of the rosary is frequently accompanied by song, at least during one decade. The girls are not seen counting the Hail Marys. Nevertheless, they never make a mistake in counting out the right number. They say that the Virgin advises them when it is time for the Gloria. The Virgin prays with them, it appears, the part that corresponds to the Gloria. If sometimes they make mistakes or do not do it well, the Virgin nods her head a little to call their attention, though she remains smiling. The Virgin's style of prayer shows much similarity with Lourdes and Fatima, but in this case, beside the devotion to the Rosary, it appears that she wants to bring out the attention that we owe the Blessed Sacrament. On June 3, 1963, as John the 23rd lay in state in Rome, the bells of the church at Garabandal rang out for the end of his papacy. As they tolled for his burial, Conchita revealed to her mother a prophecy that was destined to be fulfilled many years later during the pontificate of John Paul II. This prophecy was to put an apocalyptic stamp on the pontificate of John Paul II that would make it unlike any of the previous 263 pontificates.
He cried out, Maranatha, come, Lord Jesus, Maranatha.
When the apparitions began, Garabandal was a village of 70 houses, isolated from the world. The stone buildings had been there for many centuries. Communication with the outside world was by a steep donkey trail that led down 3 miles to the next town at the foot of the mountain. The people living in the village supported themselves by farming. They raised livestock, which they kept on the ground floors of their homes. In winter, heat was provided by the warmth of the animals stabled in the houses. Heat was also supplied by wood taken from the fields. Laundry was washed by hand. Water had to be drawn from wells and carried to the homes. The children had to help in the slaughtering of animals. The animals shared the houses and the streets with the people. The small herds were grazed on the sloping mountainsides. The people gathered hay from remote pastures and carried it on their backs to feed the animals in the village. The children spent many hours helping their families gather hay. animals pulled the carts used to haul farm materials. They walked long distances with baskets on their backs to bring lunch to their families in the pastures. Like all young children, they played with the other children and amused themselves with dolls. Theirs was the life of peasant farmers. In this ancient rural environment, the four visionaries had grown up. Throughout the apparitions, they continued in this primitive country existence that they had known prior to the ecstasies. Their life consisted of performing menial tasks like gathering hay. They fetched water. They tended animals. They washed clothes. They cut wood. They did the household chores. Theirs was a simple country life. This routine country life was abruptly changed on June 18, 1961, when the four children stole apples from this tree. The Virgin Mary selected Lucy as the main visionary at Fatima. Conchita was the main visionary at Garabandal. Conchita wrote a diary of events that she completed when she was 13 years old.
When we had filled up our pockets, we hurried off to eat the apples in the kalea. When we were enjoying ourselves eating the apples, we heard a loud noise, like thunder. And we all shouted out, "It seems to be thundering." Suddenly, a very beautiful figure appeared to me, shining brilliantly without hurting my eyes. The other girls thought I was having an attack. As they were going to call my mother, they found themselves in the same state I was in. Then they exclaimed together, "Oh, an angel!" Then there was a short silence among the four of us, and he suddenly disappeared.
The angel began appearing almost daily. News spread to the surrounding areas, and people began to come to watch the ecstasies. To protect the girls from the crowd, a fence was built in an area called the Quadro. At first, the angel did not speak. The children saw a banner underneath him. Engraved on that banner was the message of Garabandal. On July 1st, the angel spoke.
I come to announce to you a visit by the Virgin under the title of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, who will appear to you tomorrow, Sunday. That day, he spoke to us about many things.
The angel was asked about the writing on the banner.
The Virgin will tell you about it. I will come tomorrow with the Virgin. We went to the kalea to recite the rosary, and before we had arrived there, the Virgin appeared to us with an angel on each side. One of these was Saint Michael, and the other we did not recognize. He was dressed like Saint Michael. They appeared to be twins. On the right side of the angel, at the same height of the Virgin, we saw an eye of great size. It appeared to be the eye of God. The Virgin comes in a white cloak, a blue mantle, a crown of little golden stars. Her feet are not seen. The hands are open, and there is a scapular on the right one. The scapular is brown. Her hair is long, a dark chestnut brown color, wavy, parted in the middle. The face somewhat elongated. The nose also somewhat long and fine. The mouth very beautiful, with lips a little full. The color of her face, tan, much lighter than of the angel, different. The voice, very beautiful, very unusual. I don't know how to explain it. There is no other woman who resembles the Virgin in the voice or anything. Sometimes she carries the baby in her arms. He is very small, like a newborn baby, with a round face the same color as the Virgin's. He has a very small mouth and hair slightly long. He is dressed in something like a tunic.
Conchita's diary described Mary's appearance on July 4th.
The Virgin was smiling as usual, and the first thing that she said to us was, "Do you know the meaning of the writing that the angel carried beneath him?" We spoke out together, "No, we don't know." "It gives a message that I am going to explain to you so that you can tell it to the people on the 18th of October. And she told it to us.
The message told to the children will be forever linked to John Paul II. This envelope contains the undisclosed part of the Fatima secret. Lucy gave it to her bishop, who sent it to the Pope. John Paul II knows the Fatima secret that was to be opened in 1960. In 1961, the world was to know the Garabandal message. The children told the message to the people on October 18, 1961. That was the day the Virgin told them to reveal it. They did what they were told to do. When out of the raptures, the girls talked and acted like the other village girls. The onset of the raptures was abrupt. The visionary's head would snap back. The visionary would fall violently onto her knees. In the raptures, their bodies became rigid, so that their arms and legs could not be moved. Their voices changed. Gravity lost its normal effect on them. They became heavy, and it was difficult to lift them off the ground. Yet the girls could easily lift one another up to reach the vision. Sometimes they were raised up in the air. The early raptures took place on a trailway leading up to a group of pine trees where a great miracle is predicted to happen. The girls walked in their ecstasies. They walked through the village, forwards and backwards over the rocky ground, with their eyes looking up at the vision. They entered the church to visit the Blessed Sacrament. After the bishop prohibited this, they remained outside the church door. The girls recited the rosary.
Llena eres de gracia, el Señor está contigo, bendita eres entre las mujeres y bendito es el fruto de tu vientre, Jesús.
They held up rosaries and other religious articles for the Virgin Mary to kiss. Then these kissed articles were returned to their owners. Mary also kissed wedding rings, reminding married couples of the sacredness of their vows. Even though the girls brought many rings for Mary's kiss, they always returned each ring to the right owner. If couples were not living lives faithful to the marriage vows, Mary would not kiss their wedding rings. Reminiscent of Fatima, where she said, "Many marriages are not good. They are not of God." The visionaries carried crosses. They kissed the crosses. Then held them out for the observers to kiss. They usually presented the cross first to the priests that were present. They always knew which of the spectators were priests, even when the priests came disguised as laymen. Mary asked many times for prayer for priests because people follow them. There was a fifth person who saw the apparition.
In the days that I was at Santander, there were in the village two Jesuit priests, Father Ramon Maria Andreu and Father Luis Maria Andreu. They came like many others without believing. At the end of the rosary, the four of us were in ecstasy, and we began to walk toward the pines. And when we arrived there, Father Luis Maria said, "Miracle! Miracle!" And he was looking upwards. We saw him ourselves, and in our ecstasies, we have never seen anyone except the Virgin. And we saw Father Luis, and the Virgin told us that he was seeing her and the miracle. The following day, the four of us went to sweep out the church. And while we were sweeping, Jacinta's mother arrived very upset and said to us, "Father Luis Maria Andreu has died." And we didn't believe it, since we had just seen him the day before. They said that when he was about to die, his last words were, "Today is the happiest day of my life. What a most good mother we have in heaven." And he died. Several days after the death of Father Luis, the Virgin told us that we were going to speak with him. The Virgin appeared to us, smiling very much as usual, and said to the four of us, "Father Luis will come now and speak to you." And after a while he came, and he called us one after the other. But we didn't see him, we only heard his voice. It was exactly the same as when he spoke on earth. And after giving us advice, he also told us something for his brother, Father Ramon.
On August 4th, 1964, Conchita wrote to Father Ramon.
On July 18th, the feast day of San Sebastian de Garabandal, I had a locution, and in this locution, I was told that on the day after the miracle, your brother will be taken out of his tomb, and his body will be found incorrupt.
The tomb was opened, and bones were found. Scripture reports how St. Michael hid the body of Moses from the Israelites. St. Michael can hide the body of Father Luis. Incorrupt bodies like those of St. Catherine Labouré, St. Bernadette, and Blessed Jacinta of Fatima are characteristic of the Virgin Mary's modern apparitions. As hundreds of ecstasies took place in the summer and fall of 1961, attention was attracted to Garabandal and to the message that was to be announced on October 18th. On that date, there fell a torrential rain, as at Fatima 34 years before. A large crowd made the ascent up the mountain to the village in the heavy downpour. Many remembered a similar day of fierce rain at Fatima. There 70,000 people had come in the storm to see the miracle of the dancing sun. The children read the message.
We must make many sacrifices, perform much penance, and visit the Blessed Sacrament frequently. But first, we must lead good lives. If we do not, a chastisement will befall us. The cup is already filling up. And if we do not change, a very great chastisement will come upon us.
There was no miracle, just the brief message that was transmitted to the crowd. Having heard the message, the spectators left Garabandal on that rainy day disillusioned. They had expected a miracle.
For many centuries, nuns, brothers, and priests of religious orders have worn special habits, showing that they have consecrated their lives to God. At Garabandal in 1962, brothers of the Order of St. John of God were present at the Pines when Conchita received a mystical communion from St. Michael. The visionaries always knelt to receive mystical communions on their tongue. Today, communion is received in the hand while standing. After the mystical communion, Conchita held up the brothers' habits for St. Michael to kiss. Today, hundreds of thousands of religious persons who have professed vows have discarded their habits. St. Michael's kiss was a premonition of things to come.
It occurred years prior to the day when massive numbers of religious persons were to wear clothes of the world. In 1962, 2 days before Corpus Christi, the Feast of the Blessed Sacrament, frightening ecstasies took place. The girls screamed with terror during the nights that became known as the Nights of the Screams. It was during these ecstasies revolving around the Feast of the Blessed Sacrament that the visionaries received visions of a future warning and chastisement.
At La Salette, the Virgin Mary spoke about the irreverence and impiety of priests toward the Eucharist that cried out to heaven for vengeance. In Fatima, the angel requested reparation for the outrages, sacrileges, and indifference shown toward the Eucharist. At Garabandal in 1962, the Knights of the Screams linked the chastisement with the Eucharist.
One month later occurred what became known as the Little Miracle. During the ecstasies, the visionaries received mystical communions from St. Michael. The communions were not visible. On July 18, 1962, Conchita received a mystical communion from St. Michael, and the host did become visible on her tongue. This little miracle was filmed on a motion picture camera.
The Second Vatican Council convened in September of 1962, the year after Garabandal began. Following the council, priests were prohibited from saying Mass in the Tridentan liturgy that dated back to the catacombs. The Latin language, the universal bond of the Roman Catholic Church since the days of St. Peter, was pushed aside. Centuries-old penitential practices of fasting and abstinence were eliminated. Great numbers of convents and seminaries closed. The majority of Catholics stopped attending church. The Catholic Church entered a whirlwind. The last painting from Michelangelo's brush depicts Peter the first Pope being crucified upside down. Peter was chosen by Christ, as St. John's Gospel relates.
Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these others?
Yes, Lord, you know that I love you.
Feed my lambs. Simon, son of John, do you love me?
Yes, Lord, you know that I love you.
Look after my sheep. Son of John, do you love me?
Lord, you know everything. You know I love you.
Feed my sheep.
Some of the energy and enthusiasm exhibited at the beginning is gone. Now approaching